people say that all energy is only borrowed. And one day you have to give it back.
Well, it looks like Avatar 3 is shaping up to be the darkest film in James Cameron's $5.2 billion franchise based on some recent comments. And honestly, it makes me think Jake Sully might not make it out alive. Plus, there's an awesome moment in Avatar Fire and Ash that will definitely be worth the 3-year wait, so stick around until the end of the video for that. But first, let's dive into what might happen to Sully. With the announcement of James Cameron's latest Avatar sequel title, new theories are popping up to make sense of the director's mysterious take on its meaning. Avatar Fire and Ash, which is set to drop in December 2025, suggests a fresh direction for the long-running franchise, as Jake Sully and Neytiri keep fighting against Miles Quaritch. Cameron's excited sneak peek gives a strong hint about the upcoming story arc in this third installment of the Avatar series. In a chat with Rotten Tomatoes, Cameron elaborated on the thematic elements of Avatar Fire and Ash, saying,
"Well, if you think about what is fire, fire can represent hatred, violence, trauma,
Power.
possible misuse of power.
Yeah.
There's a lot of thematic stuff. What does ash represent? In my mind, in this film, it represents the aftermath of all of that energy, which is grief and having to live with what you've done."
Cameron explained that fire can stand for a lot of heavy stuff, like hatred, violence, trauma, and even how power can be abused. He thinks ash represents what comes after all that chaos, like grief and having to deal with what you've done. He mentioned that this movie digs a lot deeper into the characters and really explores the emotional aspect of their actions, which could test their relationships. He also teased that the film will be both surprising and give fans what they want, so it sounds like he's aiming for some emotional depth alongside the action. However, some fans are still worried because Cameron has a tendency to rely on cliches and predictable storylines. Since Avatar Fire and Ash is set to be the darkest installment yet, Cameron hopes to change that perception. Cameron also mentioned that the film will be simultaneously unexpected and it will also be what you crave. These insights hint at a much-needed emotional payoff following the action-packed prequels. Still, fans remain anxious about Cameron's history of cliches and predictability. With Avatar Fire and Ash poised to be the darkest film in the franchise, the director aims to address this public criticism head-on. James Cameron's explanation of the Avatar 3 title hints that the sequel will dive into a much darker story. In the first two movies, the Na'vi and humans represent clear-cut good and evil, the Na'vi being the peaceful protectors of nature and the humans embodying the dangers of industrialization and military might. However, Avatar Fire and Ash plans to shake things up by introducing a new Na'vi tribe that complicates this good versus evil dynamic. Cameron's mention of hatred suggests the film will explore how such feelings can develop within Na'vi culture, leading to more conflict for Jake Sully and Neytiri. If this hatred escalates into a war between Na'vi tribes, it raises questions about where each character stands and whether it could tear their family apart. Cameron's focus on grief and emotional consequences also ties back to the previous film, Avatar: The Way of Water. At the end of that movie, Jake and Neytiri's eldest son, Netayam, dies in battle, and we don't see how the family processes that loss. Avatar Fire and Ash seems set to explore the impact of Netayam's death on their family and how Jake and Neytiri cope with this tragedy. James Cameron's comments about Avatar 3 hint that we might see some big character deaths coming up. The whole Avatar franchise really digs into themes of death and loss. In the first two movies, these themes are pretty much everywhere. Neytiri loses her father at the end of the first film, and Jake gets involved with the RDA because his twin brother died. You also see other characters grappling with personal loss, like Jake dealing with losing his ability to walk, Kiri and Spider coping with losing a parent, and even Miles Quaritch coming back after dying. Death and loss are common themes in Cameron's work, with movies like Terminator and Titanic being prime examples. He often explores these themes through the clash of technology and nature, raising moral questions about human progress while focusing on individual emotional journeys. With Avatar Fire and Ash, Cameron has a chance to explore these ideas in fresh ways. What would it look like if a high-tech military teamed up with a spiritually connected indigenous tribe? Would that shake up Jake and Neytiri's efforts to protect Pandora's wildlife? And how do their experiences with death and loss impact their ability to stay focused on their goals? With Avatar 3 being the darkest film yet, it makes the upcoming Avatar 4 and 5 even more crucial to the overall story. James Cameron and the production team are already planning ahead, having shot Avatar 2 and 3 at the same time and even starting on parts of 4. This approach is similar to what Peter Jackson did with the Lord of the Rings trilogy, allowing Cameron to weave a bigger narrative across multiple films without falling into the trap of generic filmmaking. Cameron's comments about Avatar Fire and Ash show that he's really in tune with what audiences want. He acknowledges his reputation as a tech-focused filmmaker while hinting that he's taking a more layered approach to the usual blockbuster formula. If this next sequel is going to be the darkest yet, then the 4th and 5th films are likely to build on these ambitious themes. Cameron has already mentioned a time jump in Avatar 4, suggesting that Jake and Neytiri's kids might become a major focus in the upcoming sequels. Anyway, back to Avatar Fire and Ash. While this sequel has a lot of storylines to revisit, it really needs to address one big setup from Avatar The Way of Water. It's easy to lose track of everything going on in the franchise. You've got Jake Sully's journey, the story of his kids, Neytiri's feud with Spider, Spider's connection to his dad Miles Quaritch, and Jake's battle with Quaritch, all while dealing with the main conflict of humanity invading Pandora. By the end of that film, Loak has become independent by going against his parents. While Neteyam's death was super tragic, Loak's decision to help Peykan the Tulkun, despite defying his dad and the Metkayina, ended up saving a ton of lives. Peykan, the outcast Tulkun, stepped up and took out the RDA ship, helping the Metkayina win a temporary victory after suffering heavy losses earlier. All the Tulkuns might team up with the Na'vi in battle for Avatar 3. Peykan's choice could really change how the Tulkuns operate in the sequel. Even though the title, Avatar Fire and Ash, hints that the focus will be on the Fire Na'vi, the movie also needs to wrap up Peykan's storyline. In The Way of Water, we learn that the Tulkuns made a pact of non-violence, and Peykan got exiled for breaking it, even though he was just acting in self-defense while his family was being attacked. His decision to go against that non-violence pact ended up saving the day in the last film, helping the Metkayina win the battle. Peykan's aggressive move showed that not fighting back was a losing strategy. While Jake Sully's clan benefited from Peykan's help, he also protected his own community. The RDA was backing the hunters who mercilessly killed Tulkuns, so Peykan's attack highlighted that their non-violent approach wasn't working. This sets up a great opportunity for the Tulkuns to learn from Peykan's actions and fully fight back against the RDA, joining the Na'vi in battle. Avatar 3 really needs to keep Peykan's story in mind for this moment, or else all that buildup will feel wasted. The Tulkuns fighting back in Avatar 3 is super important for Peykan's story. While seeing the Tulkuns join the Na'vi in battle would be a powerful moment, it's not just about the spectacle. Peykan still needs some recognition and justice. He didn't do anything wrong, yet the other Tulkuns still shun him by the end of Avatar The Way of Water. His storyline naturally leads to a conclusion where his community acknowledges that he was right all along, but that hasn't happened yet. So, Avatar Fire and Ash really needs to focus on wrapping up Peykan's unfinished character arc from The Way of Water. Let me know what you think about that in the comments section. Subscribe to the channel to get updated regularly with the latest update. See ya!